From the PEP Radio Newsroom, these are the stories we are covering at this hour. The U.S. Supreme Court is letting Donald Trump and his administration cut $783 million of research funding in an anti-DEI push. The Trump administration can slash hundreds of millions of dollars worth of research funding in its push to cut federal diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, the U.S. Supreme Court decided on Thursday. The High Court majority lifted a judge's order blocking $783 million worth of cuts made by the National Institutes of Health to align with Republican President Donald Trump's priorities. The High Court did keep Trump administration guidance on future funding blocked, however. The court split 5-4 on the decision. Chief Justice John Roberts was among those who would have kept the cuts blocked, along with the court's 3 liberals. The order marks the latest Supreme Court win for Trump and allows the administration to forge ahead with canceling hundreds of grants while the lawsuit continues to unfold. The plaintiffs, including states and public health advocacy groups, have argued that the cuts will inflict incalculable losses in public health and human life. The Justice Department, meanwhile, has said funding decisions should not be subject to judicial second-guessing, and efforts to promote policies referred to as DEI can conceal insidious racial discrimination. Meanwhile, Washington, D.C. remains on edge as Trump's military cracks down on our nation's capital, with nearly 2,000 National Guard troops expected to be deployed in Washington as part of President Donald Trump's law enforcement crackdown. Parts of the nation's capital have started to look like occupied territory, with massive military transport vehicles dotting the city. The average number of people arrested each day in Washington during the first 10 days of Trump's federal takeover increased by about 20%. Those totals include arrests by both local police and federal officers, but not immigration arrests, according to a law enforcement official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss data that has not been publicly released. While members of the president's staff, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, went to a Shake Shack Wednesday to praise soldiers for bringing law and order back, they were met mostly with jeers from city residents who argued that the increased military presence was without reason. D.C. native Laverne Smalls, age 46, said the city's vibe is very different. It's very quiet, and I don't like it. Should be full of life. Donald Trump has blamed wind and solar for electricity price hikes, but experts disagree. With electricity prices rising at more than twice the rate of inflation, President Donald Trump has lashed out at renewable energy sources such as wind and solar power, blaming them for skyrocketing energy costs. So Mother Nature is supposed to block the sun and stop the wind? Why? Trump called wind and solar power the scam of the century, yet they've existed a lot longer than electricity that's been harnessed has. Anyway, he said all that crap in a social media post and vowed not to approve wind or farmer-destroying solar projects. I'd be amazed if this man has ever set foot on a farm. Energy analysts say renewable sources have little to do with recent price hikes, which are based on increased demand, aging infrastructure, and increasingly extreme weather events, such as wildfires that are exacerbated by climate change. Trump promised during the 2024 campaign to lower Americans' electric bills by 50%. Democrats have been quick to blame him for the price hikes, citing actions to hamstring clean energy in the sprawling tax and spending cut bill approved last month, as well as regulations since then to further restrict wind and solar power. California Democrats have released a new House map. California Democrats want to win 5 more U.S. House seats to counter a similar play by Texas Republicans. The California legislature plans to approve and has already approved the map shown in our YouTube video, and place it before voters in a November special election. Current districts show party control from the 2024 election, and proposed districts show the partisan makeup Democrats hope to achieve in the 2026 election. And speaking of the National Guard being in Washington, D.C., a National Guardsman has been ticketed over an automobile accident. The National Guardsman driving an armored vehicle that crashed into a civilian car on the streets of Washington, D.C. has been ticketed for running a red light, the military unit overseeing all the Guard troops in the city said on Thursday. The Joint Task Force District of Columbia did not identify the Guard member involved. The crash is still being investigated, according to the task force. The crash occurred Wednesday around 6 a.m. in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. The driver of the other car was taken to the hospital. The Guardsman was driving a heavily armored military vehicle that is designed to provide protection from roadside explosives. The task force said the vehicles are being used in the nation's capital to transport Guardsmen to their point of duty. A Pennsylvania lawmaker is proposing terminating the partnership agreements between local law enforcement and immigration enforcement. The legislation proposed by State Representative Heather Boyd would prohibit law enforcement agencies in Pennsylvania from signing 287G agreements and terminate any existing partnerships with local law enforcement agencies and ICE. Currently, local law enforcement agencies can partner with federal agencies through agreements under Section 287G of the Federal Immigration and Nationality Act, per the memo. This allows officers to perform immigration arrests while performing routine duties. State Representative Boyd argues that these partnerships can end up costing local governments large amounts of money and can negatively impact trust within the community that they serve. Currently, 28 Pennsylvania law enforcement agencies have signed agreements to serve either under the task force model or as warrant service officers. Pennsylvania law enforcement are at their best when they can focus on enforcing state and local laws, and as such, they should not be enforcing federal immigration laws, said Boyd. The bill has not yet been submitted for introduction. That's the news at this hour. If you're watching our news videos on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel. PEP Radio is now available on Roku, the Live 365 app, the PEP Radio page at paequality.com, and on Alexa. Simply tell your device, Alexa, play PEP Radio. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.